everyone, this is Michael out in Maui. Aloha. So today I wanted to talk about developing snap. I made a video talking about the reach back and how much tension you should have in your arm on the reach back. But it got me thinking on the release of the disc from making that video. I recommend watching that video because it ties in to this video of getting the wrist to snap. But what I realized was when you reach back, you need to have tension in your arm. Just firm tension, not a death grip, but just firm. And what that allows is when you throw the disc, that tension will keep your arm from straightening. Because you don't want to throw with a straight arm because you could hurt your elbow. So that little bit of tension will stop your arm on an angle when you throw the disc. So when I reach through, my arm's going to come here, but with that tension, it stays bent. From my arm stopping, if you had a high-speed camera, it would show that your arm stops. And that's what enables your wrist to fire. Your wrist can't fire if your arm doesn't stop. A lot of times I think people are throwing their disc like you would throw a frisbee. When you throw a frisbee, you just throw it with your whole arm. You know, you run up and you'll throw the frisbee with your whole arm. You can't snap a frisbee like you would a disc. You know, it can't handle that kind of torque. So the disc, when you throw the disc, you have to get a wrist snap to throw it. So if you can't develop the wrist snap, that's why you don't get any power on your disc. So to get power on your disc, you have to have a firm arm on the reach back. So that way when you come forward to here, your arm is gonna stay bent and it's gonna stop for that brief time. So when your arm stops, that's what allows your wrist to fire through. Your wrist can't fire through if your arm doesn't stop. Because that's how you generate the snap. So when you're pulling through, you have to have arm tension. So when you're leaning over to make that throw, your arm comes into your side, and then when it snaps around this way, it stops. You have a firm grip so that way the disc will snap out. But when you throw the disc, really make sure you have good arm tension. Because like I say, if you're throwing it with no arm tension, it's making you kind of throw as if you're throwing a regular frisbee. You know, if I don't have the arm tension, I come through and I'm just throwing like this. So I'm using my whole arm to throw the disc. But as you realize, when you're trying to throw a driver, it won't go anywhere, because it needs that pop. It needs to be thrown with a snap of the wrist. So to develop it, you just got to make sure on your reach back, you have a firm arm. You have good tension, you're holding on to your disc, a firm arm, not strangling it, but just firm. And then when you throw, your elbow comes into your side, and then your forearm snaps around, and then it'll stop, and that's where your wrist will fire through. But it would only do that if you have arm tension, because that's what's making your arm stop. It would just basically be, if you just stand here, turn this way, take your arm back and try to stop it right here. So just stand here, you know, pull it in and just rotate it around. So here, and then stop it, just like that. So if you stand and stop it, that's kind of what is happening right there. If I come in and I stop my arm, that's what enables my wrist to snap now. Because my arm stopped. As I came through, my arm stops, and now my wrist can fire through. If your arm keeps going, then you don't get any snap on the disc. So I think most of the time people aren't getting the snap, it's just because you don't have enough arm tension to get your arm to stop on the release of the disc. So once again, it's just, you know, if you reach back and you try to stop your arm. Reach back and stop it right here. That stop is what allows your wrist to fire. The rotation comes from your upper body. So your arm stops, but the rotation of your body and your hips make the follow through. The arm isn't generating the follow through. I'm not throwing the disc and generating my follow through from the throw. I'm generating the follow through from my shoulders and hip turn because my arm is stopping. So you're here, your arm stops, wrist fire, shoulders turn, and that's your follow through. So I just recommend when you're throwing your disc and you're not getting that hit, try tension. Put some tension in your arm. I mean, you can't really think of stopping, you know, because it's just happening. But I think because you have tension in your arm, that stops it. You know, like when you're pulling through, you know, and you reach back and you're here, you know, this is happening, you know, so fast. But it's like I say, with that tension in your arm though, it'll stop your arm. Yeah, I wish I had a really high-speed camera, you know, because I think if you had a really, really high-speed camera that could break it down really slow, you would see that your arm stops for that split, you know. So anyways, I just recommend that you start trying to throw with a little more tension in your arm to get the wrist to snap. Don't think of it as throwing a frisbee. So anyways, this is Michael out in Maui. Aloha.